Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of your hosts for Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. And today's episode, where we talk our guest, Niigaan Sinclair, about the pivotal role that school principals play in reconciliation efforts. Niigaan Sinclair is an Anishinaabe writer, editor, activist, and head of the Department of Native Studies at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Manitoba. One of the questions we look at, are principals merely symbolic gatekeepers, or can they be true advocates for systemic change?
This podcast is brought to you by the word ally, from the Latin meaning to bind to or to tie together. An ally offers mutual support in a cause and has come to its modern meaning of someone who supports marginalized groups without being a direct member of those groups.
Check out our website, www.restorative.ca, for some practical restorative resources to help build relationships and allyships. Now, we've jumped right into this conversation with Niigaan Sinclair, so here are your hosts, Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan.
The principal is the gatekeeper to reconciliation. So that's the principal can be either the biggest problem or the biggest obstacle. Like literally, like you can be a bigger obstacle than colonialism as a principal, or you could be the biggest ally. Meaning, but you're going to be punished for it as a principal. Every single policy, every single practice that involves Indigenous education is going to be rejected by the system. And that's why the principal is the most important person to stand up, defend, and advocate for Indigenous education. Because the fact is that every single policy practice, every single pedagogical principle of Indigenous education is going to be rejected by the current school system in 2024.
So what are you advising principals to do then? Can we just
break every rule of your own school district? And I say that facetiously, but I'm not lying. I don't know. Have we started? Do you want me to?
Yeah, just keep going. Yeah, we're rolling
right into it. Please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I need every principal to not just wear an orange shirt because it's convenient or it's the right thing to do, or you feel good or you feel guilty, or whatever reason this week we decide we're going to wear an orange shirt. But you got to know what it means now that you put that orange shirt on. And that means that you have fundamentally broken the systems, the ideas, the very policies and procedures that brought you to the dance. What that means is, think of it this way. You're expected as a principal to dress in a professional manner, wear a suit, and hold up a particular standard of excellence in a school. So now you're being asked to wear an orange shirt with your suit, if that, or at all, maybe just something that's completely out of the norm. And why are you doing that? Because you believe that we can build a better country. You believe that you can build a better environment for students in which everybody sees each other as part of a community, humans, that we don't have to lock people under reserve and hammer them into poverty and keep them in boil water advisories and then hammer them into poverty and trauma and keep them there. You believe that something else can happen. But the problem, of course, is that you then will take that orange shirt off the next day and you'll go back to the everyday practice of the school. Now, the school is built to make and create Canadians who are individuals, competitive, and capitalists. And in that formula, Indigenous peoples always lose. They will always be left behind, especially when it comes to individualism, capitalism, and then in the end, competitiveness, which is what schools are built to create. They're not built to create responsible, ethical Canadians who are kind to each other. The schools are built and designed, especially after grade 9, to create people who only achieve individually, especially the core subjects, only succeed at the cost of others, and that's grades. When we hold the person who's the most competitive, individual, and capitalist, we hold them up at graduation as the Governor General Award winner, as if that's an achievement. When reality is that it will be the ways that we see each other as human beings, the way that we create community and we care for each other, that will be the most Canadian thing we can do. But yet the school system drives us out of thinking in that way. And you as a principal can either choose to help create ethical, strong, responsible Canadians, or individual capitalist competitive people who are antithetical to the very values that the country purports to represent.
So are you finding enough principals who are willing to take on the task of setting aside everything that they've learned or stood for or brought them to this position?
I don't think it's easy. I think that it's a challenge because what it does is I'm asking principals to take a very brave and a it will involve cost. It will involve probably lacking being punished or lacking promotion. The problem will be is that if you have a principal who's dedicated to reconciliation beyond just wearing an orange shirt and reading some territorial acknowledgement at the start, which means nothing and changes nothing in the school, if you're a person who's going to be just ornamental when it comes to Indigenous education, you're probably going to be rewarded. You're probably going to be put into the superintendent position and the other. But if you're going to be an ethical person with integrity and actually do what you say that you're going to do, which is you're going to wear that orange shirt, and then you're also going to practice the values that you do on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation the next day, and that means that you're going to advocate for the inclusion of Indigenous education within the school system. That means you're going to have to help people to learn about outside the school. You're going to have to recognize that Indigenous peoples aren't always certified teachers. You're going to have to recognize that the Indigenous school day or Indigenous education doesn't fit into a 9 to 3:30 in a concrete box and people sitting in rows. Indigenous education is going to demand an engagement with the universe, with the community. It's going to involve languages that are not welcome in the school or certainly not easily brought into the school, or people who have achieved things aren't always from Europe. They're people that actually come from the territory in which we're standing on right now. And all of these things will result in you being called a problem maker or a troublemaker or
Or shit disturber?
person who doesn't follow the rules, or why don't you just get along, or haven't we done enough already, or and so if you're going to be a person with integrity when it comes to Indigenous education, then I'm going to ask you to do something that you're probably not going to be applauded for, but eventually you will be, because eventually the outcome of what that is clean water, food to eat, and a better place that actually lives up to the name Kanata, not something that's Canada, which is a misunderstanding of the Indigenous word, which means the village.
Everything you're saying here, I'm thinking as a principal for over 20 years, absolutely, I agree with you 100%, because butting your heads with the people above you can be an uncomfortable thing. And if you choose to do that, then just be aware there's going to be consequences, and that's fine. If you can live with those, great. I think as I became aware, as Indigenous education started to come into the system, even before I retired, a lot of it came from the ground up. A lot of it was the ground up. Teachers coming to me as a principal saying, here's what I'd like to do. To your point, beyond wearing an orange shirt, here's what else I would like to do. And I think what principals can do is listen to those people and allow that to happen. Because quite often they don't. They say, we can't do that right now. We can't do that because it doesn't fit this or it doesn't fit that. But a lot of the change that you're talking about will come from teachers and will come from staff members and parents in the community who say, here's what I think we should be doing. As a principal, just don't stand in their way. At the very least, get out of their way and let them do it, but also find a way to be part of that change, because that's where a lot of the great actions and the great ideas are coming from that will make that systemic change that you're talking about. And as a principal, sometimes we have to say, okay, we're going to do that. And I'll deal with the people up above who say we shouldn't. That'll be my role, is to be that gatekeeper kind of piece.
I just want to comment what you said earlier, which is when I was a teacher, and I'm a recovering grade 9 teacher, meaning I taught for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I had 4 principals in the 4 years that I was a teacher. That was the state of the situation in the division I was working in at the time. Largest division in Manitoba, the largest one in Winnipeg, the largest public one. And so what blew me away is one of those 4, who shall remain nameless. I'm not 100%, he might be still alive. I'm not sure. Anyways, every conversation that I ever had with him started with no. And as a teacher, like if a person is coming with an initiative or an idea, they are the person you should be listening to the most, even if you don't agree with their idea. Like if you are a principal who is somebody who starts every conversation with no, or I'm worried about liability, or I'm worried about policy, or upsetting, or parents are going to complain, then I don't think you just should be in the job. And here's why, is because the person who's coming to your office is thinking creatively and is 100% engaged with kids and the betterment of the school, is constantly thinking of the betterment of the school, like constantly thinking, how do I make this place better? How do I make this place more engaged and inclusive? How do I make sure that this place can be better for those kids who are coming 10, 20, 30 years from now? That's what that person's doing. No one ever goes to the principal's office with an idea because they're trying to be selfish, or they're trying to be like, oh, I want to ruin the school by this idea. Like, are there bad ideas? 100%. But the principal should be starting with yes every single time. Yes, or yes, what can I add to this? Or maybe yes, but.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so I just wanted to, you sparked my memory of thinking about a principal who I have otherwise erased from my mind, and
Sorry
frankly
about that.
is a person who I think at one time loved his job, but perhaps maybe didn't at the end of his career. Certainly should not be in charge of a school with highly engaged teachers that I was. Like I was involved in a school that we were the first to start so many initiatives in one quarter of Winnipeg, and we are still the first. And my daughter she just graduated from that institution, and I'm proud to say that the initiatives I started, despite the administration, not because of, but despite, and the other upsetting thing is that the same person that said no to me when I said, screw you, I'm going to do it anyways, was right there for the photo op.
Yeah.
And
The credit. Yeah.
because I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew it was the thing that was inclusive for Indigenous kids. I knew it was the thing that I didn't really care about. I think maybe my own thing of, I didn't care about policy or permission slips, because I think that when you got kids in the child welfare system and need to know their language and their culture, I don't really care about whether their foster parent want them to know it or not, whether they're consenting. And that's my own issue as a Indigenous educator in the division. Those kids need to know, and they need to know about who they are and what they're, because I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking about the school.
As Niigaan Sinclair rightly points out, reconciliation efforts must go beyond symbolic gestures like wearing orange shirts, and must include practical actions that can challenge the current system and prioritize Indigenous values of community and alternative educational methods. This is something which resonates for educators, particularly those interested in restorative practices. You can find out more about our work with relational ways of building community through restorative practices at www.restorative.ca. Now, there's a lot more coming your way, so stay tuned for the next episode.